Yep.
Right. Okay, I think it's recording. Cool. All right, well, welcome everyone to our final author interview for National Library Week. Today I have local author Tamara Hart Heiner, and she publishes YA. She's got a ton of series out. And Tamara, why don't you start by telling us a little bit about what you do and about your books?
Well, I'm a writer. That's what I prefer to do in my spare time. I'm also a mom and a wife. And so I do find myself doing a lot of dishes. But writing is what I do to kind of deal with the unpleasantness in life, like vacuuming and doing laundry. I can escape to fantasy worlds, even if it's not fantasy, it's fiction. So it's a made-up place I can go. And young adult novels are my favorite to read. And so those have become my favorite to write. I really feel like I never grew out of the teenage years. I'm still a teenager at heart, and I really get them. I really understand the angst and the drama and the desires to be wanted and accepted. I also write children's books. That was kind of on accident. I wrote a few books just for fun, and they started selling really well, and there was a need and a want for me to keep writing them. So I do write children's books too.
It's the Cassandra Jones series, right? Yeah. Is it Cassandra or Cassandra?
Well, whichever.
Whichever.
Some people say Cassandra, some people say Cassandra.
There are 6 of those now? No.
There are.
Yes, okay. That's awesome. Cool. Now you also do or host writers retreats, don't you? Where you
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about that.
So usually we do one in the fall and one in the winter. So the fall one's usually in October after school's gotten going and settled down. And since I'm the one hosting them, I get to choose where it's going to be. And I will usually in the fall pick somewhere local like Branson or like the Ozarks. In the winter, I will pick somewhere that might not be quite so local, but nobody's traveling in wintertime. Nobody wants to go there, so I can get really cheap flights. So we've done Michigan, we've done North Carolina, we've done places where you can get a flight for $200 and stay somewhere for really cheap because it's winter and nobody's going there.
That's awesome. Cool. Well, we'll just dive right on in. We'll start with this one since we're talking about travel. Have you ever gone on a literary pilgrimage to help you write about a specific place in your books?
Oh, yes. So I've done that several times. When I was writing my paranormal ghost story series, I went to Virginia Beach because it was taking place in Virginia on the beach. And I wanted to be able to walk the boardwalk and really experience what it was like. And that was really great because I felt like I was able to incorporate little details that I probably could have gotten off of Google as well, but it felt more authentic because I was there. But my favorite was probably last summer when I went to Scotland for an upcoming, really epic Merlin retelling that will be coming out sometime in the next 4 or 5 years. It's going to be huge, like a 10 series. I am so excited about it. I have 2 books written, and I'm going to get all of them written before any of it comes out. So I just know that it's done. But going there to Scotland and just hearing the way people spoke and seeing the ruins, I felt like I had traveled back in time. It was an amazing experience, and I can't wait to do it again. I felt like the ideas were just flowing through my head while I was there. And I just wanted to sit and write, but at the same time, I wanted to go and look at castles, and I wanted to go and walk over to the beach. It was so wonderful. So that was probably my favorite literary pilgrimage of all time.
Oh my gosh, that sounds amazing. Scotland is actually one of my, it's on my bucket list, but I went to Lyon College, whose t-shirt I'm wearing today. And they're a Scottish heritage school. The mascot is the Fighting Scot. So yeah, that's where we're at. So do you find that reading sort of energizes you, or is it exhausting for you?
Totally energizes me. I am a very 100% introvert. The social isolation has actually been really great for me.
Same.
I don't need to be with people. I do like people, but I don't need them. I choose to be with people. But books energize me so much. If I'm ever starting to feel like a little bit overwhelmed, or if I start feeling moody and I'm not quite sure what's wrong, then usually it's because I haven't spent enough time writing. And it is a way, they say that dreams are how we process what we did during the day, and writing is how I process my life. It's how I process my feelings, my fears, my anxieties, even parenting issues, things that I'm dealing with my children. Writing is how I deal with all of it. So it's a therapist for me, and it's extremely enjoyable also.
That's awesome. So a career and therapy at the same time.
Yes.
So do you believe in writer's block? Have you ever experienced it yourself either?
I think writer's block comes because you haven't prepared your story enough. If you know where your story is going, even if you get stuck in the middle, you can just skip that scene, skip that chapter, and move to the next part because you know where the story is going. And once you have the whole book out, it's really easy to fill in those blanks. And I've done that before. Just skipped a chapter or said something like, this scene is where the princess is going to meet the prince, and we're going to skip it. And then when I go back in and revise, by then the whole book is written. So it's really easy to put in those places. So I don't believe in writer's block. I think it's a real thing, but I don't think it should stop you as a writer. If something is bothering you, you just skip it. Just move on and get where you need to go. And I compare writing without knowing your destination, like getting in the car and not knowing where you're going. You might have the idea that you're going to get something to eat, but if you don't know exactly where that is, you're just going to wander around, not really knowing how to get there, what to do. So I think it's very important to have at least your ending.
Mm-hmm. That's awesome. Have you ever experienced reader's block then? Like where?
I'm not sure. I'd never heard that term before. I think, so trying to understand what reader's block, there are times where I don't know what to read, or I'll pick up several books and none of them grab me.
Yeah.
And times where I just don't feel like reading, where I'm like, I'd rather go, I don't know, watch a movie.
I experience that a lot too. Yeah, it's frustrating, I feel like, to not be able to do that. So you're an author, but you're also kind of like a writing coach. It's what it sounds like to me. What are some common traps within the writing trade that you have learned and want to tell aspiring writers to avoid?
So the number one thing that I tell aspiring writers is to not look back. When you start that book, don't go reread chapter 1. Don't go reread chapter 2. Don't go back. You finish that book before you look back. If you need to look back at the previous paragraph to help you remember where you were, that's okay, but don't look past that. And the thing that I see the most with new authors is they will have perfect chapter 1s. The first 3 chapters are stellar because they've been reread 16, 20 times, and they haven't moved past that.
Yeah.
Because they get stuck on this perfection thing. I want it to be perfect. No, you don't. You want it out. It can be trash. You can revise trash. You can't revise nothing. So that is the number one thing that I tell new writers, is to just put it out there as much as they can.
That's good advice.
And the other one would be, like we talked about before, is making sure you have an ending. You know where you're going with that story.
Yeah, that's awesome. Do you have, I lost my place, I'm sorry. It'd probably help if I put my glasses on. Do you have anything that you would tell your younger self, your younger writing self, that would help you, in your mind, be a better writer now, that you wish you had done in the past?
So young people, they have the ability to see the world without a box around it. And so I think teenagers especially have some of the very best writing ideas ever. They've got amazing ideas. And as we get older, our minds get narrower and we're not able to see those amazing outside the box things. And so a lot of teenagers I meet, they will have great ideas. They don't finish their stories. They move on. They do something else. I get that. I did the same thing when I was a teenager. I wrote a book and then I forgot that I enjoyed writing, and I didn't write anything for 10 years. And so the advice I would give to young people who enjoy writing is to not stop, to remember that that's something they enjoy. And even if they don't have time or the desire right now to write a book, write down their ideas. Because someday when they're 25 or 30, they're going to be going, what should I write about? And if they have a notebook or even a file on the computer that's got all of these ideas, those ideas are going to be amazing. They're amazing. And they're things that they might not think of once they're older and kind of stuck in that realistic, I'm an adult point of view.
Yeah. Do you carry around a notebook now?
I use my phone, to be honest.
That's good too. That's good too. Yeah. That's a good, what was an early experience where you learned that language had power, and does it affect you as a writer now?
I can't pinpoint an exact moment where I realized that language had power, but I can think of several moments where I felt that, whether it was from listening to a speech or reading something that moved me, where I realized that people could move someone with words, and those moments would inspire me. And so I knew that I wanted to be able to create that same inspiration. And I do feel that that is a goal I'm trying to achieve often in my book. So I write a paragraph or something that I really want the reader to feel fired up. I really want them to feel that power or that emotion, whether it's happiness or excitement, or even that, yeah, let's go get them, let's do it. I really want my readers to feel that. So I do concentrate really hard with words. And that's where revising comes very important. I don't do it so much on the first draft where I'm like, I know I want this to be important, but it's when I revise, I'm very careful with my word choice and make sure that it elicits that emotional response that I want it to have.
Mm-hmm. That's amazing. I think I said this in the last author interview, but I love Scott Fitzgerald, and I was reading one of his biographies where his wife was talking about how he would spend hours on one sentence because he wanted it to be perfect. He wanted people to feel what he was conveying. And so I feel like that's something that's really important for a good author, is to really focus on those emotions. So that's cool that you really focus on that. How do you kind of create these characters in your head? Do you base them on people you know, or is it completely like fairyland up here and you're like, all right, let's start from square one, like building a sim?
They're kind of a really big mix. When I'm writing my kids' books, then I do base them a lot off of characters I knew as a child, but I'll mix them. They'll be like, one character had this attribute and one person had this attribute, and I put them into one, mostly because in real life, in any given day, we might talk to 50 or 100 different people. But in a book, you really have to limit your cast. So I will merge people so that my cast isn't so big. But I do a lot of people, because I've known a lot of interesting people in my life. And so I do use that a lot in my middle grade books for kids. In my YA books, they really are mostly just created, just completely fictional. I'm not really basing them off of anyone. The characters will come to me at some point, usually before the plot. I'll have an interesting character and I'm like, okay, what is happening with this character? What story would I write for this character? I'm hugely inspired by music. I'll be listening to a song and it will create an image in my mind that makes me think this is a story. There's a story behind this. And there are lots of, on my phone, when I'm making notes of my story ideas, I start each one with story idea : so that I can search for them and find them pretty easily. And if it's a song that inspired me, I will write that on there, what song it was, because I know that when I listen to that song again, that story idea is going to come back to me. But some characters are completely made up, completely fictional. And then the ones for my younger kids, mostly because those are based a lot on my own experiences as a child, I'm more readily able to recall real life people and use experiences from my life there.
Cool. Do you use the same process with the naming your characters too? Do you kind of like, is that a difficult part of writing for you?
The only difficult thing with naming characters is that I write so many books and so many characters, so sometimes I'll reuse a name, and I really hate that.
Especially that one that you just.
I try to keep. Right. I try to keep lists. I am not very creative when it comes to naming, because I don't want it to be something that readers have a hard time pronouncing, or that they can't tell if it's a girl or a boy right from the name. So usually when I'm coming up with names, I'll pull up the top 100 popular names from 2020, 2019, and just go down the list. I just pick names that they're going to be familiar with and comfortable with, rather than something amazing, unless it's pure fantasy, and then I can do all kinds of crazy stuff.
That's true. That's very true. Fantasy, you have a little bit more license there. Do you do you like hide secrets in your books that only like certain people will find, like little Easter eggs from your own life that, like, if one of your friends is reading it, be like, oh,
I certainly do.
That's cool.
Yeah, and it's
You there? You cut out for just a
Hi.
second. We're back.
Okay, so I'll just continue.
Yeah.
So some of the Easter eggs are hidden for people that have read maybe another series of mine, and it'll be just a little like, can't think of the word.
Like
Just
a little egg, I guess. Like
yeah, or a cameo, just a little cameo here, something from one of those other books that is like, you got that because you read my other books, nobody else will. And then some of them are just for discerning readers, where I'll stick something in one book, like in book 1, where she might write something on a notepad and they never see what it is in book 1. And then in another book, like book 2 or book 3, he picks up the notepad and finds a sentence written on there. And the discerning reader from book 1 might realize that's what she was writing when she was writing on there. Someone else might not get it at all. And that's totally fine, because it's not pivotal to the plot. They don't have to get it, but it is a little bit of a nod to people who are paying really close attention. They'll get something a little bit deeper out of it. So I do put little things like that in my books.
That's really cool. That's fun for your readers too. You're sideways, by the way.
Oh,
it looks that way on my screen. I didn't want to interrupt you because that was a really good, but that's really cool that you do that for your readers.
Here we go.
Do you recommend reading your book reviews for writers? Is that something that's important to you?
Some people really have a hard time with negative reviews.
Yes.
And I get that. Some people really can't read their reviews. It really bothers them. I'm not one of those people.
Okay.
So I read all of my reviews. I feel like each one it's a gesture from somebody. They read my book. They cared enough, whether they hated it or loved it, that they wanted to write about it. The only reviews that really bug me are people saying things like, I hate this because my 3-year-old downloaded this book without my permission. And so they give me a 1 star. And I'm like, really?
Listen here. How is that my fault?
I know. And you do get stuff like that. But on the other hand, I've gotten 5-star reviews from people saying, I really love these headphones. They work really great. I'm like, okay, well, they gave me 5 stars. So
any press is good press? I don't know. That's really funny that happens.
it does.
What's the most difficult part for you in your creative process? Like starting from the idea to the physical book in someone's hands. Like, what's the most difficult part for you?
The rough draft is the hardest part for me, because I can see the book in my head. I can see the whole story, and I just want it out. I just want to
vomit it out on the page and be like, okay.
Yes. If I could just like, blah, and there it would be.
Yeah.
But it takes so long to get that idea from here to the page, and that is the hardest part for me, because I just want it out. I want it out. Once it's out, then I can revise it. I can make it pretty. I can do all kinds of things to it. And there's also this fear in my head. I'm like, what if I forget that scene? What if I forget that dialogue? I've got to get this out before it's gone. So the hardest part for me is the rough draft. And I usually speed through it as quickly as I can, but that's not extremely fast, because there's just so much going on in life.
Yeah. Well, how long
I get through that?
Yeah.
Well, it depends on the length of the book.
Yes, because you write a lot of different genres. I say genres, but yeah.
So my kids' books, the Cassandra Jones books, they usually take me about 6 weeks to get out a rough draft. The longer books, like the one that I'm working on right now, that's an Academy book, it's long. Each book's like Harry Potter length. Yeah. And I've been really powering through them because I want to get them done in that same 6-month period, but I'm not quite able to. It's definitely stretching out into 2 months, even 2.5 months for some of them. Yeah. And that's just because my word count goal has to increase. If I'm trying to write a 60,000 word book, I can easily do 10,000 words a week, and we can get it done in 6 weeks. But if I'm doing a 120,000 word book, I have to double that to get it done in the amount of time. And it just takes more time, and I don't always have that time.
I get that, especially being mom and school teacher now too.
I know, especially right now, it's really
bad. Is there something that you would tell yourself as a child and teenager that would make you a better writer as an adult, that you wish like you could tell your younger self to do?
Mostly I would just tell myself not to stop writing, because I did completely stop. And I think about how much farther along I would be if I kept writing, because when I started writing again, as a married mom, I was still learning the basics. I was still learning about point of view. I was still learning about not head hopping and dialogue tags and adverbs and all of these things that I could have learned 10 years earlier if I would have stayed with writing. So that would be the big thing, is not to get distracted, because I got distracted by high school and college and all kinds of things.
Yeah.
And I wish that I would have kept writing through all that time.
If you were not a writer, what do you think you would be today?
I would probably be a travel agent or a chef.
A chef. I would love to be a chef. If I wasn't a librarian, I would be a chef, totally. And finally, I've got one more question for you. What does literary success look like for you personally?
For me, literary success was when I started making more money than I was spending. And spending can be quite a lot, because I was spending to go to conferences and spending to do research and spending to go on writers' retreats and just gas to go and do a presentation somewhere, covers and editing and marketing. So when I started making a profit, and it was a very small profit at first, it was like $100 a month. But when I started making that profit, that's when I felt like I was successful. That's when writing moved from being a hobby to being a job. And that was a very wonderful moment. And it's much better than that now. But that was where it felt like, okay, now this is real.
I've made it. That's awesome. That's awesome that you made it there. All that investment back in the day then paid off.
Yes.
All right. Well, I will link your Amazon page to the comments in this chat. I can't talk. I don't know what's going on. For our patrons to buy your books. And thank you so much for joining us today. This has just been so enjoyable, and I hope you the best.
Thank you so much. You've been great. It was really fun.
Thank you. Have a great day.
Okay.
Bye.
You too. Bye.